gotten into your audio, but yes, you're very welcome, Coach Richie. Coach Richie is one of the champions of the human resource function changing. And I forgot to mention that Nelson is a champion for keeping the human resource fraternity engaged. I must say, I admire your resilience. From very, very long time ago, you're always pulling people together. So with that short introduction, I am going to ask that I start and share with you what I wanted to talk about today. Please do share on the chat anything about yourself that you would like us to know. If you have any questions, you can actually put them on the chat again, and I will also respond to them. So what we're going to talk about today is about the power of teamwork. So one of the things that Profiles does, and does very well, if I might say, is run programs around molding cultures. And teams are a fundamental resource when it comes to culture. In fact, a team is the smallest building block where you can start changing collective behavior, where you can start instilling the kind of values that you want to see in terms of what you want to support your business growth or business outcomes, whatever that may be for you. And so today we are going to talk about harnessing, in fact, not harnessing, we've removed it there and said unleashing the power of teamwork. And we're going to rely on a guy called Patrick Lencioni, who has developed this model that we use, because he says that teamwork is both a very simple thing to cultivate and also a very difficult thing. Simple because, yes, we all know what it is, what it constitutes, but it requires a lot of patience, a lot of consistent work to make it into the teams that we want to see. So here today, we'll talk about how the landscape is changing in terms of team and in terms of the disruptions that we have seen. We'll see how the 5 behaviors approach is tailored towards ensuring that we harness the different changes that we're seeing in the different environments. And then we'll talk about the 5 behaviors, personal development, learning experiences, because every single behavior should be personalized to how you yourself will find it. Will it be easy? Will it be hard? Will you need a coach? Will you need a mentor? And then we'll talk about the next steps after that. So briefly looking at the dramatic changes in the workplace today. I mean, I was listening to BBC today, and the one thing that seemed to take over, the one word they kept mentioning was ChatGPT. I don't think an hour passed before they mentioned it in some way or the other. And I think over the last 1 week, I have listened to 3 or 4 experts being brought in to talk about the changes that AI is bringing to us in the workforce. I even know people who write letters, firing or hiring letters using ChatGPT. And then we have a lot of global collaboration. People are working from everywhere. We no longer are the intact teams that rely on being in one single office. We can work from anywhere. My team works with a lot of people across Africa, as well as working with people globally. And we want to be effective as well. And we've realized that we don't need to be together. And then the organizational makeup has also drastically changed. The way that we do things is drastically changing as well. The way that the workplace is being arranged is also drastically changing as well. So when you think about these dramatic changes and you talk about how teams as they were, this is the kind of structure we had. We had the person who was leading the pack and people who are reporting to him. And the organizational structure was pretty clear. There was a lot of clarity. But now teams are, will you just sit in the middle? And one of the things that a leader really starts to realize is that their work is primarily support. You're like a support system, because everyone is able to do their job. They have the materials, they have the resources. They just need an hour of your time to bounce off some ideas. So you yourself are trying to create those particular avenues that people can show up as of themselves, and you also want to give yourself that the space to be able to be the support that they need. But then the one thing is, these teams need to communicate, and they need to collaborate, and they need to do it with speed. We no longer in the era where things can be checked over and over again if we want to go and if we want to thrive. Just yesterday, we ran a program where most of the people who came on board within like 4 days, and it was so fast because people make a decision just like this and they decide they're going to do it. And we're all different, and you have to accommodate everyone. I can see Nelson here saying that, not known to many, he struggles with prioritization, but he's well versed with the tools to support prioritization. Prioritization requires discipline and mental strength. That is true. So what's the effect of having this changing landscape, I might add, on your organization as well as its people? So what we've seen over the years, let me remove my earphones, that what has happened is that a lot of miscommunication has started to happen. I was running one of these programs just last week, and they say, you all agree, you sit for 5 minutes, you all agree, but immediately you leave, someone goes and does something else, someone else goes and does something else. And the result is that whatever was to be done is no longer a priority. Once I get to my desk, I find my own stack, my own things that I want to do. So you find these are some of the things that we're beginning to see in teams. I don't know which one for you when it comes to your team. Which one are you finding is one of the things that is really disrupting the team that you're in? And you can type that on the chat as well. Is it the misaligned goals? It's because, of course, communication. Is it too much communication? Are you finding that there is a lack of trust, which leads to a silo mentality? Are the roles unclear because everyone can do everything and we're seeping into other people's roles? So what are you finding? I'm seeing someone is typing, I think, but feel free to let me know what you have been struggling with. Is it technology, disconnection, which is also true because we find ourselves sometimes unable to disconnect from technology. It's in our face all the time. So effective team cultures then, now more than ever, are required. You have to now be more intentional about the kind of team culture that you're creating. I see Eric Muthomi there has shared unclear roles. And in fact, even at the team that I was in the last time, that was the one thing that they cited. Yes, they know what they're supposed to be doing, but their roles seem to be very amorphous. And it ends up having a conflict, social conflicts that are not good for the team. So you have Abwatsi saying competing priorities, a lack of trust, and Nelson saying conflict resolution. So now more than ever, with all these things that are happening, you have to be very intentional about the kind of team culture that you're creating. It must have shared values. It must have transparent goals as well, because if you don't do that now, what's going to happen is that people can get information from so many other places. And so if there is no free information flow, they will start making assumptions. In emotional intelligence, we say that once you start creating an environment that is uncertain, there's no clarity, people start creating assumptions because we're just creatures looking for meaning. So everyone needs the critical skill of having information flowing from one area to the other. And there are very many things that perhaps might not allow us to do this as effectively as we should. So when we look at teams, the critical gaps that we are seeing, we know that for this teamwork to be effective, we have a set of behaviors that we must learn. One of the things when we do the survey we get is people are withholding information. But when you ask the people, why are you withholding information? They're like, we're not withholding information. For us, it was our information. And so we think everyone else has it. They can go and get it. So they must learn that people need that information, and they must learn that people need that information shared. That's the skill they must learn. Then most people base their understanding of teamwork based on a set of principles that they learned in childhood through trial on error in the workplaces. So for example, if I trust you, then I will make you my ally, my buddy. You'll be my go-to, even if you're not necessarily part of my team. But then what that happens, it creates what we're calling silos. So this pocket of trust here, and essentially then might drive away other people who want to communicate with you. So these are some of the things that we learn we think are good practices, but they're not really supporting the team. And these traditional behaviors sometimes may get in the way of effective teamwork. So what if instead of saying just go with the flow, which for a long time has been one of the things guys say, go with the flow, try and get on with it. We're like, no, we want people who can challenge the status quo because everything is changing. What if instead of saying fake it till you make it, and it's a very we all say if we're going to fake it till we make it, we're saying, no, let's admit our mistakes. Let's admit our mistakes, what has gone wrong, and learn from them. What if instead of trying to show that we have all the answers, which is something, again, that we have learned from childhood, I know I'm the resource, I know everything, and if I don't, I look weak. We are saying, let's ask a lot of questions. And today, in fact, my own son was in class, and I was listening in, and the lecturer was telling the students something about computer science, and one of the kids there started correcting him. You can imagine what kind of scenario that was creating for him if he's not acknowledging that he does not have all the answers. What if then, instead of consensus, which we have long thought to be something that a team needs to have, we say, no, we don't need consensus. We don't need everyone in the team to agree, because then that will mean there's not real diversity. We just want people to commit to the decisions that we make. So setting the new rules for teamwork, teams that will thrive moving forward, we have to think about the 4 things that I've shared. How do we challenge the status quo so that we are forever innovating? How do we get people to admit mistakes in a place where we've been told that you have to fake it till you make it? How do you get people to ask questions, especially, for example, for us who are older, asking the younger generation to give us answers, where we have poised and said that, we're the ones who are leading it, so we know where we're going, and we seem to have all the answers. How do we get commitment even where we have conflict around ideas? So our 5 behaviors approach is a very simple model by Patrick Lencioni. If you haven't read his book, I encourage you to buy it. It's a very simple book, very well written around a story. And it talks about trust, the 5 dysfunctions of a team, lack of trust. And for the model, we changed that around to trust, creating trust in a team. How do you ensure that you have trust in a team? Because when you have trust in a team, you allow for the second behavior to happen, which is conflict. We believe that good teams fight, but they fight around ideas. They fight around intellectual ideas. They reduce a lot of the social conflict. We also believe that once teams have been able to air their views and everyone feels heard, then they will commit. And they will not commit because of consensus. They will commit because they have clarity of role, they have clarity of objective, because a lot has been thrashed out. They have felt heard, and so they're not going to pocket veto because no one gave them a chance. And they have all agreed that this is possibly the best way forward. And when teams commit, they are able to hold each other accountable. So another thing is that we do not want the leader to hold the team accountable. We want the team members to hold each other accountable, what we call peer-to-peer accountability, because that way then we focus on team results. Because there are many other results. You can focus on results for your department. You can focus on results for that bonus that you want. You can focus on your promotion, and therefore there are certain things that you're going to do to guarantee that promotion. But we want to hold each other accountable so that we focus on team results. So the power of the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, we address that critical need for a team to develop enough trust so that there's free flow of information. We also provide a common language through the DISC system of personality that we use, where people can start addressing their problems more objectively. And this inadvertently creates what we call a high-performing team. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it because such teams are actually a lot of fun to be in, and it seems like they take things a bit light, but they're really, really tackling issues head-on and not avoiding them. So we want to use this powerful and proven model, the 5 behaviors that I've shared, to drive what teams can harness in terms of their power, their collective power, or what we call their quantum intelligence. We want to look at you as a person, your personality, and we want to understand how does this person bring themselves to the table when it comes to trust. Because it's all easy to tell someone, you come and trust us, but we are all looking at trust from different angles. So we must acknowledge that first, and then we say that, okay, what are we doing to break that trust? Or what are we doing to build that trust? What comes naturally to us and what doesn't? And that means that then we are approaching team development with a more humane approach of let's first understand one another, where we are coming from, and then we can then work together to build the team that we want. So we want to help participants better understand themselves, their personalities on their teams, and how to work better together. And what we are focusing to do is address specific team performance and dysfunction. So this is around real issues. For example, one of the teams says that, we haven't had a meeting in 3 months. Why? Because we don't think it's important. Why? So those are some of the things we want to address, specific things that teams must do in order to keep being high performing. We want to create a team credo, something that teams can believe in. And then we want to keep empowering that team so that it remains an intact team. So it all starts with you as a person. So if you're on this call, these questions are going to be for you. What is true for you? What doesn't fit for you? And even when we run the team, we ask people, what surprises you when you get your personal report? What surprises you about how you're bringing trust to a team? Some people are surprised because they are a dominant personality, and they think that delivering a discussion in a forthright manner should build trust because what you see is what you get. But because of their forthright manner, it means that others might not be as willing to share that information. So it's a bit surprising, and when you understand the impact that your behavior is having on the ability of the others to trust themselves with you. So they will not want to look weak, or they will not want to admit mistakes because they feel perhaps that you might be direct again with them and forthright with them and make them feel like they're less than. So those are some of the things that we tackle when we're talking about team. And I want us to start with trust. And when we talk about trust in the 5 behaviors, I ask this question about teams, and they will tell me trust is built. Trust is like a Post-it. Once you stick it the first time and you remove it, and you stick it the second time, it doesn't stick as much. And Patrick Lencioni says that if you have been with a team of people long enough, you know how they're going to behave. If you know who's reliable in your team, you know who's going to come late tomorrow because yesterday was Friday or Thursday, you know who you're likely to give this kind of work, you know who you won't, you know who's going to be the talker, who's going to sell the idea. And that trust we call predictive trust. I can predict what you're going to do. But the kind of trust we need nowadays in teams is what we call vulnerability-based trust. When members can comfortably and quickly acknowledge their mistakes, their weaknesses, their failures, and their needs for help while recognizing the strengths of others. And someone even pointed this and said that, yes, this might not really be possible if people are not demonstrating emotionally intelligent behaviors. But that's the kind of trust that you want. Because more often than not, people have to admit when they are not getting things right. I had a session with someone just about last week. And her biggest problem was that she got into an organization. She was told to deliver a set of policies. She did not know how to do that. But when she went back to ask for help, the person was very, very curly. She was very like, you don't know how to do this. How can you not know how to do this? Later on, when they got to know each other, he's like, by the way, I found this place like this. People keep saying develop policies. No one has ever developed those policies. And everyone hands it down to the next person because no one really knows how to develop policies. Now, since she was the first one to admit she didn't know how to develop policies, they did the right thing. They actually got a consultant to come and help them. But can you imagine how the lack of admitting that I don't know because I've just come into this place, I'm feeling judged, I don't trust these people, I'm going to perpetuate that thing that we know how to develop trust. We know how to develop policies, and we have no idea. We have no clue. So we have to build trust in our teams so that we allow that thing called vulnerability-based trust, that I can come and I can tell you what I am going through or what I don't know or what I need without feeling that you're going to judge me harshly for it. So some of the reasons people may hold back when it comes to developing vulnerability-based trust is not wanting to feel exposed. So people will say, I'm a private person. I don't want to share too much information. It goes against my nature. Others may not want to appear incompetent, especially if you're the personality we call the C-type who love details. They love being accurate. So they do not want to appear incompetent. And so they work hard to be so knowledgeable and so capable and to be seen that way. And they have that image to protect, which ultimately hurts the team because we see this person who's so solid that even us, we feel like we have to also be a certain kind of solid. And then also fear of criticism and how it's given and the fear of looking foolish. So all these things might be things that you look at when you think about vulnerability-based trust. So I'm going to ask the people on the call today, which one for you is one that would kind of push you towards not embracing vulnerability-based trust? I know for me, it's the first one, not wanting to be a burden is one of the things that I feel sometimes that if I share with someone, I will seem like I'm trying to add more work to them. So some people I can see Eric Mudomi also says one, not wanting to be a burden. Abwati says yes, not wanting to be a burden. Jackson says not wanting to be a burden. And this is a common trait for people with a dominant personality because they want to be solid and they want to be the rock. I can see Cicely says lack of trust, leadership is on the line. Yes, it is on the line, definitely, because people follow people. They do not follow organizations. Mary says not wanting to appear incompetent. So I think yours was one of the first ones. I mean, number 4 down there, not wanting to appear incompetent. I don't know how to do this yet. For a very long time, I have been the one who has been called as the professor of this, or, if you want to know something. So these are some of the reasons that you might find people saying that they do not want to get into this area called vulnerability-based trust. I must say that it also calls on a lot of self-reflection, because once you have a bit of safety in yourself, then you're willing to explore some of these ideas. And people who can lead themselves must be able to get into this area of discomfort to be able to lead others. So scenario 1, while using one of your team's primary software, for those of you who can't see the screen, this is a scenario I want you to give me an answer. While using one of your team's primary software platforms, you accidentally delete a large block of data. Working on your own, because you don't want to tell anyone because you might seem incompetent, you manage to restore the information and you're about 90% confident that there will be no adverse effects from this issue. What do you do next? Vitu kwa ground, what do we do next? C, proactively notify your teammates of the situation. Honestly, A, keep the issue to yourself. Yeah. I've been in a situation almost similar to this, and I think I waited to see if my teammates would encounter any problems first before I explained. I'm gonna say C, and I will cheer myself loudly. Yeah, I guess it will depend on the kind of environment that you're in, but
There's someone who said, yes, I will keep the issue to myself until the moment I feel, okay, fine, now this one needs to be let out. But if you can actively do C, then you are way ahead of the curve. Is there some music? Sorry, I think there's some music somewhere that I need to stop. Okay, now back to the presentation. So how to build trust? This vulnerability-based trust. What are some of the good habits for building trust where you know you're willing to let your guard down? What are some of those things? So in the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, we actually explore some of the things that teams can do to be able to build trust. One of the easiest ways I say to teams is to allow for informal time with your team. So allow for some time when your team can be together without the burden of work, where they can be themselves, where you can understand them from another point of view. And that has to be deliberate. It can't happen by accident. So those things like, lunches, coffees, evenings, we used to see them being done quite a lot in the past, but now the world seems to be too quick for us to keep doing them again. But those things are very essential in terms of building vulnerability-based trust, because they allow people to let their guard down a little bit. They allow teammates to see you when you've let your guard down a little bit, and you get to know people's backgrounds, why they do the things they do, and be able to really understand sometimes that some of the actions that they have are actually from a good place. So building good trust habits is essential, and it brings a lot of benefits to your teams in terms of free-flowing information. People feel they can tell you anything, and you can also tell them anything without feeling that you are being judged. So anything you want to say on trust? And that's just my one habit. There are many other things that people also do to build vulnerability-based trust. But for me, I find that this is the one thing you can actually do with your team deliberately, over time, consistently, that will start showing you and giving you the benefits of vulnerability-based trust. So the second one that we will tackle is actually conflict. And we call it conflict for good reason, because we believe that conflict must be uncomfortable. We did not label it discussion. We did not label it exchange of views. We want teams to actually fight. We want them to defend their point of view. And sometimes when people hear conflict, these are some of the words that they see. Negativity, stress. This was actually a word cloud, where drama was the one that was the one word that people talked about a lot. I don't know for you which one would be the one that you pick as what you think about when you hear conflict, fights, bullying, egos, tension. But for us, when we talk about conflict, we are talking about conflict around ideas, because we want to pursue the truth. And the truth here being, we want a good idea to give way to a better idea. And the only way that can happen is that if we allow people to weigh in, to discuss it, to tear it apart, and to bring it back together again. I know it sounds like a movie and it sounds like rocket science, but sometimes it's on very simple issues like an event, So guys, we've always done this, and they're probably cheaper venues, but no one has aired that. They're probably more fantastic venues, no one has aired that. No one, again, because maybe there's a lack of trust, wants to try another venue, and then it fails, and then the blame comes back to them. So with trust, people must be able to feel that they can actually get engaged in it and feel that they are not being judged. So when you have productive conflict, people voice out opinions. People go looking for other people's opinions on the corridors about what they think about certain issues. People confront and deal with difficult issues, the ones that sometimes, there's that email that has come in that you keep, it's there, but you keep it far first because you don't want to see it. So those difficult issues in a team, you will want to tackle them first and then everything else. So they're not swept under the rug. And people will want to explore the ideas and uncover the best solutions. And so we have to ask ourselves again, because we're not being blanket, is what do you contribute to conflict? And what do you find stressful? So there are people who will find conflict is too much for them because they prefer harmony, they prefer stability. And so therefore, they're uncomfortable in the kind of environment where people seem to be fighting. I see it there with my kids every day. They're like, Mom and Dad, stop fighting. And we're telling them, we're discussing. They're like, no, you're arguing. But that arguing has to be there for you to actually be able to take advantage of everyone's particular ideas and thrash them out. So what we do at the 5 behaviors is to understand what is your approach to conflict. Are you a calm debater? And are you a spirited debater? Are you steadfast? Do you hold strong to opinions? Even if God came today, you still hold strong to those opinions? Or are you receptive to other ideas? So those things start making you understand why is it that you might be struggling with what we call productive conflict. And when we then understand how we tend to show disagreement, how we tend to typically feel when conflict gets tense, then we can begin to respond better when the team starts trying to master this thing called conflict. When the team tries to encourage people to be more involved in the discussions around the table. So this is a question for you. What do you think you are? Are you the spirited debater? Or are you the calm debater? Do you tend to hold firm onto your opinions? Or are you receptive to the ideas of others? Let me see what some of you will say about this. I know I'm a spirited debater. I mean, I teach for a living, so you can imagine. I can see there's been some chat going on. Mary says she's spirited, and I can see we're talking about conflict of ideas. Abuatsi talking about the word that comes to his mind. I believe it's fiasco. And Cicely says, so long as the arguments are done with respect. Ogola says he's a calm debater. Cicely is a spirited debater. Now, each of you brings something different to the table. Joanne is a calm debater. And the funny thing is that when calm debaters are in the room and spirited debaters are in the room, I was at a training where the calm debaters said that, the spirited debaters will say the first point, and then the next spirited debater will say, I confirm and I concur, and I believe it is. And then the third one will say, in fact, even me, I +3, that's the one. So it was very interesting discussions about how spirited debaters, as they continue debating, might also be kind of keeping on at bay the calm debaters. So that's what we hope for everyone to have insights on. How am I impacting on the team when it comes to conflicts? And the spirited debaters told the calm debaters, we don't know what you think half the time, so we don't even know what to do with you. In fact, we think you're not even part of this team. We think you're letting this team down because you don't even put any effort. So different opinions from different sides of the coin, but all they want is the same thing, to have a conflict around ideas. So this trust is necessary and is important for conflict to happen. Without trust, conflict doesn't happen. What you end up having is what we call artificial harmony. People just say, yes, I agree. Then immediately they leave that room, they go to the next room to actually find out. They have the meeting after the meeting in the places where they have trust. So there they thrash out that issue. They say, your idea that thing will not work. That's why you find a lot of the times smaller teams, especially of entrepreneurs who really need to motivate people and ensure that they're in the same boat with them, they work really hard to ensure these environments are created. And somewhere along the line, I think they are lost in the melee of all the things that we're trying to do. So Cicely says, holds firm to opinions, but I am on the journey to flipping this. Awareness is curative. Understanding where you are, and which is why we are trying to approach this from a more humane thing, is the first step towards really understanding where you can get to the midpoint and what you need to do. So the next one is actually achieving commitment. We say that if there is conflict in the team, then there is clarity around decisions. and moving forward then has complete buy-in from members of the team, even those who had initially disagreed with the decision. Because everyone has talked. I mean, we've talked and we've agreed, especially the really weighted decisions. We want to move this table from here to the next room. It's a simple matter, but there'll be those who put their hands in the pocket and say, why are we even moving this table in the first place? Have we explored that option? Someone needs to tell them why we're moving that table so that they can see, oh, okay. Or the other person needs to understand that, okay, perhaps we don't need to move this table, but there's clarity around decisions. Why has this decision been made? People have a bit of autonomy around also that decision because I feel like I contributed. And when you get commitment, it means then we can then hold you accountable because you said, yes, I concur and I agree. And I know that this is what we need to do. In fact, now that we've agreed, my role in this is going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can even tell when people have bought in because they then own whatever they need to do. And they take up their role, despite the fact that they were disagreeing in the first place. And I'm sure we have seen this over and over. So what we want to do is now see again, how do you bring yourself to to commitment? What might keep you from seeking clarity? Yeah. What might keep you saying things like, I'll figure this out later. I'm going to focus only on my part. The rest of them can do theirs. Yeah. They can do what they want. I'll make sure my part is okay. So you have no commitment to that team. You're very committed to yourself, but not the team. And so clarity is so important so that then you can ensure that people are coming on board and they're buying in. So you must ask yourself, what are the barriers towards commitment? And what might make it also hard for you to seek further clarity and for you to get buy-in? So whatever that is, figure it out and then go and seek clarity and get feedback. And also get over it, get whatever that barrier is. But again, as I said, it doesn't happen until you are aware of what that would be. Then we come to the second last habit, which for me, I find is possibly the hardest. Conflict, you can learn to conflict. You can go for feedback classes and learn to give feedback with respect. You can have a team charter that gives the ground rules around conflict. I had one team that I was taking, actually it was Coca-Cola in Tanzania, and they agreed that around conflict, when people started going to the territory that was now unproductive, because they're all strong personality, they would use the word play the ball. So those are some of the things that you need as a team to see. How do we keep the ground rules so that people, when they conflict, are sticking and are sticking to the ideas, and that when they conflict, are doing it with respect, that my personality is not getting in the way of you conflicting. I'm not being domineering towards you so that I limit you from sharing your opinions. But this, called accountability, is possibly the hardest behavior because it means calling your individuals out. It means telling someone that their behavior, how they're behaving, is not working for the team. And I think for many people, that's very hard. And for the ones who can do it, sometimes they will not be able to do it with the finesse required to be able to pass that message in a manner that is taken, that this is not a personal attack on myself. So some of the things that we need to ask ourselves, and we ask ourselves when we're running the 5 behaviors, is how do you approach the topic of holding other people accountable? And you can ask yourself this question. Are you one who likes to keep the peace? You're like, like that other person, wacha wafanye vile watafanya. After all, things on my end are working out. So you're less willing to call out problems. Either one, because you value harmony, you value friendship, or 2, because you're going to shine either way. Or are you the other person who's more willing to call out problems and address them head on as they come? Because best practice says that you have to address problems in your own way, from your own personality. And then best practice also says that you need to also ensure that you are being objective and focused on the facts as well. But what do you do? What do you do when you have to hold someone accountable? Do you beat around the bush and go round in circles? Or do you try and find a way of telling them about what it is that is doing or how it's affecting the team? Or just calling them out and telling them, listen, yesterday we agreed this was going to happen and you're not actually playing your part. And the beauty about holding other people accountable is that most of the time they're not even aware. So you actually do them a favor. Most of the time they're like, oh my goodness, really me? I just thought I was doing this and this and the other. So you're actually helping them realize and become aware of the impact that they are having on the team. So this might be the hardest habit to do, but actually it is the one that also keeps the team accountable to some of the habits that they have agreed that they're going to focus on when it comes to growing as a team, being cohesive and pushing productivity. And then the last one, of course, is results. And as I said, we can actually focus on team results, or we can focus on our own results. Results are many. And we've done this assessment many times where we found that, yes, people believe that they focus on the results. But when you find out what results they're talking about, it is my balance sheet, it is my work, it is me ensuring that my to-do list is finished. Whether the rest of the people finish is really none of my business. So what we are looking at and what we want to see in teams is people who focus on team results. And if you hold people accountable towards team results, then you're going to ensure that you're delivering on team results. So what does it look like to have results on your team? Team results. It means that people will value collective success more than individual achievement. It means that people will be willing to make sacrifices for the good of the team. It also means that when a team does not achieve its collective goal, they take personal responsibility. And then it means that people will quickly point out the contributions and the achievements of others. I also worked with another team which had a lot, they would point out a lot in the area of what was not being done. And what they did to ensure that they were doing this last thing more often than not is they put a basket in the middle at every monthly meeting. And you would pick someone else's name and you would have to say something that they have done for you as a person that has allowed you or enabled you to thrive or to meet a certain objective or a certain goal that the team had set as important. So again, you personalize it to you in terms of focusing results. What would be your motivators when you're focusing on team results? Maybe you're a person who maintains high standards, so you have to use that because it's your motivator. Maybe it's being an expert and you have to use that. Let's get the statistics of the team. Let's track where the team is going. Maybe it's in-depth analysis. And maybe your stressors are you don't like working under pressure. So what are those things that are primarily you and could be a barrier to or a hindrance towards getting to the collective results that we want to see? So in a nutshell, using your motivators to focus for results is possibly the best way instead of focusing on other things that you can do. We tell you, oh, you need to be the enthusiast one. You need to bring enthusiasm from the table. But yes, it's something you can do, but it's not really one of your key strengths. So here we just focus on what are you showing up? What are the things that are coming naturally to you? And how can you use them in terms of ensuring that the team itself is focusing on what we're calling collective results? So at the end of the day, I don't know which of these 5 elements has hit home with you. I don't know which of the things that I've talked about has hit home with, has given you an insight. But for us, when we finish the program, of course, like all great programs, you must have a summary and an action point. So in line with that, I am just going to ask you in reflection, what is one thing that, as I've been talking, you've been thinking about, maybe it was one insight, and that you could try out or adopt as a habit? We didn't talk about very many, we talked about a few, but it could be something that occurred to you as I was speaking, something I didn't even mention, but something that occurred to you that you can try out tomorrow, and you can keep going for the next 2 weeks and in the next month or so. please feel free to put that on the chat as well. And it could be in any of these areas. Trust, is it conflict? Is it commitment? Is it accountability? Is it results? So Jackson has said conflict for him. You want to encourage conflict, Jackson? Anyone else would like to, anything? Conflict and vulnerability, like Cecily. Conflict and vulnerability. Eric, results, commitment. For me, accountability, encouraging peer-to-peer accountability amongst your teams. So Jackson says it's one area that teams avoid, but if you can tackle it, it can help you get work done. Yes, and what you need to do is establish ground rules around how each and every single person comes to conflict. And in some cases, it means making hard decisions like ensuring everyone has to bring something to the table, whatever that may be for you. So at this juncture, I have been talking about the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team and the learning experiences. I have shared some of the things that I have found have worked for teams that we've worked with, and I'm hoping at least you've gained 1 or 2 things. I can see Nelson has said vulnerability for leaders, then other areas will be achievable. Yeah, I think everyone has been listening into the topic of psychological safety, the topic of diversity and inclusion. It's become very big now. And without vulnerability-based trust, psychological safety also becomes a little bit difficult. And I have a friend called Derek Banga who says, without psychological safety and vulnerability-based trust is also built when people learn to respect others. They understand their personality well enough, so they have self-awareness and they are aware of other people, so they are able to be a little bit more empathetic and give people and treat people with a little more humane. The future of leadership has moved, and it is now moving towards being human-centered. And so I will then invite all of you now to ask me any questions that you might have as I stop sharing my screen. And you can feel free to unmute yourselves as well, because we're not a big team. These ones are usually very small sessions, but I love them because they're still learning sessions. So feel free to unmute yourself. Let me know what your thoughts are. I have read somewhere in the chat, someone said, I have gathered oodles of insights. I haven't had the oodles of insights, yes. And Jackson says, happy to connect with you guys, and he's given out his LinkedIn. But anyway, if you can unmute yourself, give me some of your insights. I think we still have about 5 or so minutes before we can wrap it up. Should you want to reach out to us, you can, we're all on all social media handles apart from TikTok. We're still trying to work on TikTok. I myself, Vicky Taruga, I am on LinkedIn as well, and you can reach out to us via email as well. Cecily.
Thank you, Vicky. A pleasure. Second evening in a row. Been very insightful. Just wondering the place of role modeling as leaders in respect of the matters that you've discussed, and because when you look at leaders, and I speak a lot about leaders in the public spaces because that's where I've been longest.
Yeah.
It is do as I say, not as I am acting.
Yes.
And I think that it is worth being interrogated further, because half the time is because some of these leaders really have not allowed themselves to be exposed to the direction and what's happening in the 21st century in terms of moving away from command and control, and the impact that being vulnerable and being, flowing with the season may yield in terms of improved productivity and performance. Perhaps if it's not a matter that could be looked at, it's possible we could deliberately have a conversation moving in that direction, because until and unless we influence leadership in the public spaces, shall we say our countries are going to grow? Because those are the people making decisions for us, been there, seen it, and even done it. Half the time guilty. Vicky?
I really welcome that conversation. Sometimes I get into those spaces where I'm able to have certain conversations and I feel it just like you've described it. I am very happy to have that conversation and see how this can advance. I'll even give you an example. I was called to do this particular session for a government entity, and the leader, this was a while back. The leader met me and told me, yeah, so have fun with my team. And I was like, it does not work like that. You cannot, your team is you and you are the team. So, so I refused to do the session. But finally, because he was very, very clear that he wanted his team, I realized it's because he didn't think like that. He always thought that as a leader, he gives them what they need and then they'll come back and be perfect. But having been part of the discussions, people beginning to understand him from a human, he realized that, yes, you cannot not be part of that discussion. So I hear you. And I think it is long overdue as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I see Jackson. You can have the last word and then we can close it. Jackson, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Really great insights as well. Thanks for sharing this. Just reminded me of the Tuckman team formation stages when you're talking about them. So this is something you can link up with. It go hand in hand very well because it talks about how you bring a team together where you have forming, norming, before you get stability and all those things. These are the things that you actually have to go through. So just to add on to that is also you can link this with the 5 stages of team development. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it is forming, norming, storming, and there's another one. Absolutely, I totally agree with you. I do believe that this actually supports that natural ability for people to form and to norm and to storm. And I think it is too. I don't know what
the last one is adjourning. Yeah, when you go to separation, but there's performing before adjourning.
Performing, yes, performing.
Yeah, so it starts with forming, then storming, then norming, then performing, and then adjourning.
Joining.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Thank you. Okay. I think it is now 7:26. Unless there is any other question, I have really enjoyed this session with you. Thank you for your insight, Cicely. I will hold you accountable. Thank you, Jackson, as well. I see you've given us a link to reach you by. We can all connect on LinkedIn. And if you want any further insights, please feel free to contact me and I will definitely get in touch. So let me wish you a lovely evening. And thank you for being here. Shukran. Asanteni sana and God bless you. Bye.